Hopeful, Muki asks Ange if he remembered how they met 3 years ago. He is delighted that his beloved remembers the black dragon and the little trick they played. Ange admits that he remembers bits and pieces of what transpired. He retells the story to the delighted Muki and apologizes for forgetting. Muki forgives him and assures him that he never blamed Ange. He's just happy that Ange remembers him. Whilst he forgave Ange, he will never forgive those who poisoned his beloved, as he should. Ange insists that he is at fault and apologizes for making Muki wait so long for him. Ange acknowledged that he must have been the one to fall first. However, he was also the first to forget. That night, it rained heavily, accompanied by thunder and lightning. Ange sleeps alone. However, his slumber is not restful. In his sleep, he mouths the name Moran, which was the identity Muki assumed when they first met. 3 years ago, the two slept together on the same bed. They're just talking, I promise. Ange asks Moran if he is married. Someone as talented and as young as him has probably been snatched. Moran smiled and told him that he was not yet committed. He asked Ange the same question, and Ange bragged that he has many concubines. This pissed off Muki. Deep down, Ange scolds himself for talking nonsense. Ange holds onto Moran's sleeves and asks why there would be a need for many concubines when you can have your one true love. Intrigued, Moran asks him if there is someone he wants. Ange hesitated but ultimately decided to answer the question head-on as a man should. Sitting up, he blurts out that he fell in love with Moran when he first saw him on the street. Whoa, that's very forward of Ange. Even before Moran dragged him away, he's been attracted to Moran. However, they are both men. Should Moran accept him, their union will be harshly criticized. Doubting himself, he steels himself for the oncoming rejection. Moran quells his fears, calling him foolish. Leaning down, Moran kisses him on the lips. So, that was their first kiss. Their worried voice cuts through his dream, waking him. When he opens his eyes, Ange returns to the present. Muki looms over him, asking if he has a nightmare. Speechless, Ange can only scream his name in his head. He cries for Muki, tears threatening to spill from the corner of his eyes. Surprised, Muki is about to ask him what brought this on. But Ange shuts him up by pushing him onto the bed, begging Muki to not leave him. Things are taking a turn in the right direction. Muki reaches out his hand to Ange's face, comforting him. He asks Ange what he dreamt about. Ange repeats what he said to Muki 3 years ago. If he has the one he loves, then he has no use for a house full of concubines. Touched by these words, Muki can only keep himself from crying. Muki has been waiting so long for this moment. Ange tells him that he must have a rare disease, which is why he does not remember their shared past. He promises Muki that he will do his best to remember everything about him and Muki, and asks the crown prince to put his trust in Ange. Ange does not need to beg. Muki hugs him, declaring that he trusts Ange wholeheartedly. He promises to never let Ange forget him again. When morning came, the rain stopped, marking a new beginning for our beloved duo. They continued their journey to Yunli's capital city in a carriage flanked by their entourage. Suddenly, their carriage came to an abrupt halt. Ange peeks out to see what's happening. Muki tells him that something is blocking their way. He plans to leave the carriage to check what's going on. He tells Ange to rest in the carriage. Ange warns him to be careful, to which Muki responds cockily that no harm will befall him with Ange worrying for him. Ange's cute when he's worried. Ange huffs in annoyance but is unable to refute Muki's claim. As Muki observes what's keeping them from moving forward, an attendant explains that the tree must have been struck by lightning, causing it to fall on the road, blocking their path. The attendant tells Muki that 2 guards will take care of removing the tree. Muki tells the attendant to stay put. He noticed that the trunk did not appear to have been struck by lightning, as the trunk was cut cleanly. Panic overtakes him, and he shouts back to his men to protect Ange. As he looks back, he sees 2 men quickly approaching the carriage. They fell into the enemy's trap. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Ange coughs due to the smoke permeating the cabin. He wonders where the smoke is coming from. He sees a shadowed figure behind the curtains that serves as the carriage entrance. Putting himself on high alert, he grabs a knife and hides it behind him. Mustering his courage, he demands that the shadowed figure show himself. When the curtain parts, he sees his longtime friend, Luo. This guy never gives up. It baffles him how Luo could have come to see him at a time like this. Before he could scream, Luo covered his mouth with his hand and pushed him to the floor. This man is no longer the man he knew. The obvious hatred is plain for him to see. Ange struggles, but his demands to be let go are muffled. Finally, Ange loses consciousness. When Luo lets go of Ange's face, a cloth saturated in ammonia is clutched in his hand. Guilt etched on his face as he watched Ange succumb to the chemical. But it's all for the best. He whispers his promise to take Ange away. Muki and his attendants ran towards the carriage. Some of the guards warned them to be careful as the carriage has been saturated with poisonous smoke. Meanwhile, Luo carries Ange with him, stealing him away. Muki parts the curtains, calling for Ange. An empty carriage greets him, and he slams his fist against the carriage wall, splintering the wood. The guards kneel, begging that he give them mercy for their incompetence. Muki orders them to track the culprits. Even if they have to go to hell, they must come back with Ange and bring him to safety. They all agreed in unison. Luo slung Ange to the back of his horse. He pushes his horse to its limits as he makes a mad dash away from the crown prince of Yi country. The uncomfortable position and the jerky movements of the horse rouse Ange from the chemical-induced sleep. Realizing the peril that he is in, he gathers his wits and observes his surroundings. He remembers that Luo came to kidnap him, and now his hands are tied. He demands that Luo tell him what he plans to do with him and for the other man to let him go. But Luo does not heed his demands. He would not even spare him a glance. Luo's very scary, right now. Ange tries to figure out what Luo wants to do with him. Luo thinks that he is a traitor, so there's no reason for him to come and save him. It is possible that Luo wants to use him as a hostage to get Muki to surrender, but Ange does not think that Luo will have such a motive. Realizing that he's not strapped to the horse, Ange rolls towards the horse's rump until he falls to the ground. Hoping that Luo would not notice, he keeps himself quiet, swallowing the pain he felt when he fell off the horse. Alas, Luo notices him. Ange holds his breath as he hears Muki stop and get off his horse. Ange sits up to face the man and asks him what he wants. His once best friend now looks at him, calling him by his cherished nickname, Xiao Zheng. He still endearingly addresses him. Hopefully, he still cares for Ange. Back when Ange was a prince, Luo was his steady companion. Ange would whine and complain that being crown prince is such a tedious role. Ange wants to frolic outside and wouldn't stop complaining. With a resigned sigh, Luo tells him that he can rest for an hour, but he needs to be focused when he gets back. Ange would cheer, delighted that Luo is being an indulgent friend. This time, they face each other as enemies. Luo gathers his resolve and looks at Ange in anger. He grabs Ange's hand, pulling him towards him. Cryptically, he tells Ange that he came to make him do the things that he should have already accomplished. Ange tries to get out of his grasp, demanding to be released. The rope tying his hands together digs through his skin, chafing his wrists. Luo tells him that his struggles are futile. Ange continues to struggle, telling Luo that Muki will find them soon. He warns Luo that he would not like the consequences of Muki finding him here. Luo better give up now. He wouldn't want to know what Muki will do to him once he catches up. Luo is not afraid. Forebodingly, he tells Ange that things will come to an end once Muki finds them. A shiver runs down Ange's spine at hearing this. Luo sweeps his arm around the clearing, asking Ange if he remembers where they are. Beyond the path is the celestial ceremony site on the outskirts of Yunlei. Realizing what Luo came here to do, Ange panics, begging Luo not to go through with his plans. What does Luo plan to do? Luo kneels facing him and holds Ange's face with both hands. He smiles at the emperor he once revered, the crown prince he used to indulge. His heart made up, he tells Ange that he shall die with him so that he can join him in hell. Why are you so focused on ending Ange's life? Ange can't believe that Luo would ever utter such words. Luo tells him that he never wanted to harm Ange, but Ange needs to die. You're being contradicting. He holds Ange tenderly the way a lover would. Endearingly, he calls Ange by his nickname. Luo tries to make him understand that Ange acted disloyal and treacherous by allying with the enemies. His actions are not befitting of an emperor. Ange ponders on this. He tells Luo that their one true dream is for the Yunlei citizens to live happy and comfortable lives. Ange tells him that Muki has done wonders for the citizens of Yunlei. He extended relief when Yunlei was hit with disasters and created policies to improve agriculture development. As a result, it elevated the standard of living of Yunlei citizens. Ange does not understand why it should matter who rules. That makes sense. It doesn't matter who's in power, as long as the citizens are happy and the country is thriving. Luo shuts him up. Ange's words make Luo angry. Luo sees all of Ange's reasons as an excuse to run away from the inevitable. Luo Ange strongly believes that a king must die for his kingdom after his throne is usurped. It is the king's responsibility to protect his land. He shall not allow Ange to stray from the path of a responsible king. Ange rises to calm him down. In the clearing, Ange's cries for Luo Ange's name are the only sound that can be heard. Luo Ange is batshit crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved in some cult. Muki returns to the hostel, gathering his men. He barks orders at them. He appoints one of them to take his letter to Xuan Wang, so that the latter can send more people to search the city for his beloved. He gave the task of finding Ange to the remaining guards. The guard tasked to protect Muki objects, as it does not feel right to leave the crown prince unprotected. Muki tells him that Ange's life is as precious as his. Should something happen to Ange, he shall not be forgiving. His bodyguard has no option but to obey. In the Yun State Palace, the current vassal, Luo, tells Kong Guan that his brother has been kidnapped. In a panic, he tells his advisor and lover that it must be the works of Mei Luo Ange, who has not returned since news of his brother's return reached them. Kong Guan corners Luo Ange against a pillar, asking him what makes him worry. He explains that Mei Luo Ange must have gone to force the former monarch, Luo Ange, to enter the gates of hell with him. How does he know all this? Luo Ange is foolish and is set in his ways that he will find Ange's relationship with Muki to be unacceptable. Luo Ange grabs his arms, and Kong Guan assures him that the action cannot be traced back to them as Luo Ange took action on his own. He caresses Luo Ange's face and explains that Ting's attempt to poison Ange has alerted the crown prince. They can take advantage of what happened to divert Muki's attention. Kong Guan concocts a plan to send someone to where Luo Ange is and scare him into harming Ange. They cannot skimp on this wonderful opportunity given to them. I cannot fathom how a sibling could do this. Luo Ange drags Ange to the site where celestial ceremonies are held. No matter how much Ange struggles, Luo Ange does not let him go. Finally, upon reaching the center of the rune, he throws Ange on the ground. Ange knows that Muki will stop at nothing to find him. He needs to buy more time. He trusts Muki enough to know that he's going to be saved. Tugging on Luo Ange's heartstrings, Ange asks him if his hatred runs so deep. Luo Ange looks at him with guilt. He kneels down so that he is at eye level with Ange and admits that he does not hate him. In fact, Ange has no idea how much Luo Ange cares about him. Luo Ange places his finger on Ange's chin, making them stare into his eyes. Ange panics, not liking what Luo Ange is implying. Luo Ange tells him that he understands Ange the most as they grow up together. He sees Ange as his king and idol. His world revolves around Ange. He can't bear to lose Ange and wants Ange to be only his. You're just gutted that you can't have Ange and you're using your idolatry as an excuse. It looks like Luo Ange has the mentality of if I can't have you, then no one can. With the gap in her status, Luo Ange was forced to hide his feelings for Ange. He buried it deep within him that no longer matters. He finally has a chance to be with Ange forever. As Luo Ange's lips get closer to his, Ange tries to calm Luo Ange and tells him to let him go. He turns his face away from his once best friend, evading the kiss. Hurt that Ange does not respond to his advances, Luo Ange wraps his hands around Ange, demanding to know why he would rather accept the enemy's affection. Ange tries to tell him that his feelings for Luo Ange are not the same. He only sees him as his best friend. Ouch, he got friend-zoned really hard. With Muki, it is different. Ange thinks to himself that he never liked anyone other than Muki. Muki is irreplaceable to Ange. Luo Ange raises Ange up forcefully while he rages, upset that Ange still thinks about Muki. Meanwhile, Ange's feet dangle at the edge of the cliff. Luo Ange rages as unrequited love for Ange makes him go crazy. He demands to know why Ange would still think about Muki even at a time like this. Ange coughs from this savage treatment, which makes Luo Ange come to his senses. He puts Ange down, finally releasing his hold of him. Luo Ange feels pity for Ange and quickly switches back to the once indulgent best friend. He smiles as his eyes stare at Ange with reverence. He tells Ange not to be afraid as it will end swiftly. He promises to jump off with Ange. To Luo Ange, there is no other king but Ange. This guy's a lunatic. Luo Ange's crazy talk was interrupted by the sound of hooves rapidly approaching them. Seeing that someone has come to save Ange, Luo Ange panics. He must act fast or this chance to be with Ange will pass him by. He pushes his beloved king despite Ange's protests. Muki, steering his beloved thither towards the edge of the cliff, urges his horse to run forward. He forces his horse to run at breakneck speed until his arms can wrap around Anga's torso and lifts him up on the horse, embracing him. Again, let's not think about physics when discussing ancient Chinese BL. Anga sits on the horse, his eyes staring up at Muki's face, a face he thought he'd never see again. Muki unties the rope on Anga's wrists and asks Anga if he has sustained injuries. Anga lies, telling him that his injuries were his fault. Muki assures him that he can speak freely as he is here to protect him. Luji screams Anga's name. Gon is the endearing nickname he used to call Anga. He accuses Anga of being shameless for showing affection towards the enemy on this ceremonial site. We all know what really made you mad, so just admit it. Anga defends Muki. He tells Luji that Muki is not an enemy of Yunle. However, Luji is past the point of listening to reasons. His broken heart amplifies the unfairness he's feeling. Even now, Anga defends the man he loathes. He believes that Anga is just making excuses to avoid his responsibility as a monarch. Luji takes out a knife, intent on ending Anga's life. Muki moves forward, grabbing his hand. He mocks Luji's words of loyalty and responsibility when he has come to an end with his own king. Muki asks who is really the shameless one. Muki pushes the blade toward Luji, but Anga stops him. Muki does not want to upset Anga, so he pushes Luji towards the hard ground. Luji still believes that death is the answer and that one must sacrifice for a good cause. Luji is using the good cause as a front for his actual agenda. He loves Anga and is just using fancy words like honor, duty, and responsibility to justify his actions. Walking towards the edge of the cliff, he curses Muki. He then turns to Anga, and he calls Anga by the endearing name he's always called him. Spreading his arms wide, he allows himself to fall freely towards the dark abyss, bidding Anga a quiet farewell. Anga runs towards him, almost falling off the edge, but Muki stops him in time. Anga slumps on the ground, mourning the loss of an old friend. He realized that Luji would rather die than understand Anga. Muki comforts him, telling him to stop crying. He points towards the moon and asks Anga if he noticed how brightly it shines. Despite the moon's bright light, the ceremonial site is lit with torches. Anga asks him what he means. Is Muki implying that Luji wants to be found? Muki suspects that Luji lured him to this place. He comforts Anga by telling him that by lying to Muki about this place, Luji saved Anga from himself. That's a little far off the mark if you ask me. But, okay. It's hard to understand crazy people. Anga looks at him hopefully, relieved to hear that Luji does not hate him. Luji must have been trying to stall so that Muki could save him in time. Muki assures him that Luji does not seriously wish to harm Anga and that he shouldn't be sad. I really don't think so. Muki tells Anga that he'd be jealous if he continued to think about Luji. I don't think this is the time to be cutesy. A man just jumped off the cliff. You should be calling for someone to search the bottom of the cliff for the slim chance that he might have survived, or at least get his body to his family for a proper burial. Anga can't help but mourn the loss of his best friend. He grew up with Luji. Aside from his family, Luji was the one who treated him most nicely. Muki explains that Luji severed his friendship with Anga because he did not want Anga to mourn his death. Anga tries to quell the tears about to spill from his eyes, as he realizes that he is all alone now. Muki is the only one left at his side. Muki promises that he and Anga will be together for eternity. Muki promises him that when it is time to depart from this world, he and Anga will share the same coffin, under the same blanket, buried under the same grave. That is morbidly sweet. It reminds me of Morticia and Gomez Adams. He even promises that even in the afterlife, they will be husbands. This cracks up Anga and he smiles, amidst the tears, blushing. Anga turns away from him, petulantly asking who wants to be Muki's ghost husband. Anga tells Muki that he'd rather reincarnate quickly after death. Muki excitedly tells him that they can reincarnate at the same time. Maybe in their next life, they can be reborn as ordinary people with a peaceful, stress-free life. That would be nice. Muki lets their forehead touch, promising Anga that wherever Anga goes, Muki will surely follow. Bringing their faces closer, he promises to never part ways. Finally, the two arrive at the Yunle Palace. A legion of servants led by Luo Ange and Kong Guan greets them. Muki immediately tells them to rise. Anga parts the curtains, ready to step out of the carriage. Muki immediately approaches him, offering Anga his assistance, embarrassed by Muki's public display of affection in front of Anga's previous servants. Anga declines the offer. Muki knows that Anga would say no, yet he is unstoppable. He wraps his arms around Anga's waist and lifts him up off the carriage. Carrying his beloved bridal style, Muki tells Anga that he should listen to Muki more as he is putting pressure on his wounded body. Muki has a thing for public display of affection. Anga tells him that he understands while pushing Muki off him. When Muki finally sets him down, Anga hears his brother call him. Luo Ange, you realize that Kong Guang was right all along. Crown Prince of Yi Country cares deeply for Anga. Anga greets his brother cordially, commenting how Luo has grown a lot since they last saw each other. He compliments his brother for ruling Yunla well. Luo tells him that it was all due to Kong Guang's help that he was able to rule the country well. Anga compliments his brother for being good at utilizing his manpower. The relationship between these brothers looks so good on the outside, but truly it is rotten. He turns to Kong Guang and thanks him for helping Yanyu. Kong Guang graciously bows, telling Anga that it is his duty to do so. He then tells Anga that he prepared Anga's previous palace for him so he can rest and offers further assistance should Anga need anything else. Anga thanks him for his hard work. Muki looks at Kong Guang suspiciously. He turns to Anga and comments that Anga has never mentioned that he had very talented people assisting him. Anga explains that his father chose Kong Guang to care for him and Yanyu, but since Kong Guang is closer in age to Yanyu, Anga allowed him to be Yanyu's assistant when he was crowned king. This made Muki scrunch his eyebrows. Meanwhile, Kong Guang is listening in while Yanyu looks down guiltily. Muki comments that Kong Guang must know the Luo brothers very well. Muki is suspicious of Kong Guang. I hope he exposes them soon. Muki continues with his questions. He concludes that Kong Guang must understand the royal siblings. Anga happily tells him that Kong Guang does indeed understand them both. Kong Guang has been so helpful that even the former king was not able to criticize his work. Kong Guang soaked up the place but humbly bowed to Anga, saying that he owes it all to him. Anga finally dismisses them so that they can attend to their tasks. He tells them that he will take a walk first before adjourning to his room. The two take their leave, but Muki's eyes continue to trail after Kong Guang. Don't take your eyes off of him. That guy is bad news. Anga notices that Muki has been unusually attentive to Kong Guang. Muki tells him that it is nothing. He was just upset that he was not present when Anga was younger. He laments the fact that everyone in Anga's life witnessed his earlier years. Anga takes his hands and shows him around the palace where he spent his youth. He tells Muki that he had wonderful memories there and wants to show his favorite places to Muki. Anga points to an archery target and tells Muki that he uses it a lot to practice. He brags that men from his country are skilled in horse riding and archery. When he was young, his father told him to practice archery at least 2 hours a day. Even after being king, Anga continued with honing the skill. Muki is impressed and tells Anga that it is no wonder that he is good. He tells Anga that they once hunted together and he was not able to defeat Anga as his archer skills are superb. Anga tells Muki to stop teasing him. Muki looks at him, his eyes sincere. He tells Anga that he is genuinely complimenting his talents. He confesses that it is no wonder that he fell in love with Anga at first sight. Anga pushes him off, thinking that Muki has been mocking him. There's no way that Muki's claims are true. He has never seen him hunt on a horse before. From the bits and pieces that Anga remembers, he is sure that it was he who confessed first. Muki doubled down by telling Anga that at first glance he already knew that Anga was excellent at what he did, including skills in archery and horseback riding. This answer does not appease Anga, judging by his lackluster response. In Anga's bedroom, two maids gossip amongst themselves regarding the rumors surrounding the crown prince of Yi Country and their former king. Someone saw them embrace outside of the main hall. The other maid tells her that their former king was able to whittle his way to the crown prince's harem by winning his favor. They theorize that their king must want to become crown princess. One maid comments that the two do not adhere to proper decorum and have shamelessly slept in the same bedroom. Gossiping should be forbidden. Unbeknownst to the maids, Muki and Anga have entered the room. They shook in fear after hearing the crown prince reprimand them. They shiver in fear and proceed to prostrate on the floor, begging for forgiveness. Muki reminds them that gossiping about members of the royal family is punishable by death. As Muki calls for the guards to escort the maids to prison, Anga stops him, reasoning that the maids are merely chatting with each other. He asks Muki why he suddenly got mad. Muki rescinded his decision to punish the maids severely. Instead, he told them to subject themselves to the punishments from the Internal Affairs Department. They will be working in the wash area moving forward. If I were those maids, I would run to the wash area and hide. I would never show myself to Muki ever again. The two cry in fear, but accepts their punishment. Once they had the chance, they ran off fleeing the scene. Muki looks back at Anga, noticing how the maid's words must have hurt him deeply. Muki pinches the bridge of his nose and tells Anga that he shouldn't let the rumors bother him. His proclivity to stick to Anga caused those rumors, and he tells Anga that he shall move to another room. It's all because you were too clingy. Anga notices that it is rare for Muki to apologize, and teases Muki for being weird. His smile confuses Muki, and clarifies whether Anga is angry or not. Anga smiles at him warmly, telling him that he has no reason to be upset. The two of them have been through a lot, even staring death in the eye multiple times. Anga will not allow such words to bother him. Anga reminds him that he wants to have a fresh start with Muki, and nothing will hold him back. Such sweet words. Anga demurely tells him that Muki must trust him, but before Anga can finish his sentence, Muki pulls him towards him and kisses him outside the hall, not caring about rumors. Anga pushes Muki off of him, upset that he was being serious, yet Muki would pull tricks on him. Blushing, Anga looks at Muki, who smiles at him. Muki leans in, telling him that he is happy to hear that Anga cherishes him in his heart. Anga gives in and allows Muki to embrace him. In the library, Anga reviews some documents for Yanyu. He explains that the lands in Yunli are dry, resulting in drought and famine in the past year. It was fortunate that Muki sent help by building a water irrigation wheel in Yunli's farms. The harvest this year must have been abundant. Muki turns to him and asks whom did he it all for, and pats Anga on the head. Anga pulls away and covers his head, teasing Muki that he must have done it solely out of love for his people and country. Surely, it was all for the sake of the people. Yeah, right. Muki insists that he is not as mighty as Muki gives him credit for. He playfully stretches Anga's face, who begs him to let him go. Their lovey-dovey banter is met with awkwardness from those witnessing it. Yanyu fakes a cough and excuses himself. Meanwhile, Muki continues to rub Anga's face. As Yanyu takes his leave, he realizes that Anga's personality has changed a lot. Before he can leave, he hears Anga trying to stop him. Anga insists that they should focus on the topic at hand and that Muki should stop playing around. Muki leaves him alone for a minute, mockingly telling him that he shall heed Anga's advice. Gathering his composure, Anga continues with the meeting. He proposes that some business policies should be adjusted now that the citizens' lives are back on track. He asks Yanyu if he has anything he wants to propose. Yanyu hesitates and meekly tells him that he shall follow Anga's land with Muki's lead. Anga worries that Yanyu's personality has not changed. He remembers that Anga used to defend him a lot when they were younger. However, he is no longer in a position to help Yanyu. Muki extends his hand in Kong Guang's direction, complimenting his talents, and asks him if he has any suggestions. Anga turns to Muki, trying to make him stop. Muki tells him that he dislikes incompetent people. If Kong Guang can present a good solution, he promises to reward him. However, there will be consequences if the solutions he presents are useless. Muki's threat hangs in the air, and Yanyu immediately comes to Kong Guang's defense. It's so obvious that these two are in a relationship. Muki tells Yanyu not to stress too much, as he does not kill people indiscriminately. The most punishment he shall dole out is a few dozen hits. Anga looks at Muki suspiciously. His lover is clearly up to something. Kong Guang finally speaks. He tells Anga and Muki that the most pressing issue at the moment is the establishment of the new dynasty. The landlords and merchants should be rotated. They must reduce land expansion, and they must make food more affordable. He's really insightful. Muki praises him for his insight. He is satisfied with Kong Guang's answer and compliments him for coming up with a good strategy. Kong Guang accepts the compliments. Muki concludes that Kong Guang's fluency and knowledge are not that of a mere servant. Kong Guang purses his lips, worried that the prince is on to him. Yes, he's definitely on to you. Pretending that he voiced his opinion outside his station, he apologizes to Muki. Anga does not understand what's going on and tries to defuse the situation. He tells Muki that despite Kong Guang's humble background, he can come up with good strategies. He should not be faulted for his good opinion and should be rewarded instead. Kong Guang pretends that he would not dare demand a reward. Anga tells him that he is dismissed, as he and Muki have a lot to discuss. Yanyu and Kong Guang take their leave. Anga turns to Muki, asking him why he would threaten Kong Guang with harsh punishments. Muki hugs him, telling him that he was merely curious. Someone as talented as Kong Guang would be better suited to become an imperial official instead of a mere servant. On God explains that Kong Guang lived a harsh life. His mother passed away in his younger years, and his own father sold him to the palace. Although he's obviously talented, he cannot be an official due to his background. Muki asks if the rumors he heard were true. It was rumored that Kong Guang once set a whole village on fire. What? He set a village on fire? Amda tells Muki that it was indeed true. The village that Kong Guang was born from suffered from a plague that killed its inhabitants, including Kong Guang's father. To prevent the disease from spreading, Kong Guang set the village on fire. Muki finds the story suspicious. He had his trusted guard investigate Kong Guang. It turned out that Kong Guang had deep influence within the palace, and none of the servants dared to tattle on him. His trusted guard even went as far as to visit the village where Kong Guang was born. In the neighboring town, he learns that Kong Guang was bullied when he was a child, shunned and treated as an outcast. He exacted revenge by surrounding the village with his men and burning the citizens alive. No one survived. What a despicable person. I get that he got bullied, but there are other ways to take revenge without annihilating a whole village. The best revenge is to be happy and content, which he probably was after offing all of them. Back to the present, Muki listens to Anga as he recounts tales about Kong Guang. Anga sees Kong Guang as a pitiful soul and is glad that he found a good life with Yanyu, who treats him well. He tells Muki to not come between the good relationship between Kong Guang and Yanyu. Muki takes it in stride and playfully smacks Anga's cheeks with both his palms. He tells Anga that he's just being cautious. Conducting an investigation should not disturb Anga's brother. With his cheeks squished, Anga tells Muki that he is just being anxious. He grew up with Kong Guang, and there's no way that he'd betray them. He assures Muki that they do not need to worry about Kong Guang. Anga, that's one of the reasons why you're no longer king. You trust me too much. Muki realized that Anga was indeed clueless. He decides to continue with his lovey-dovey banters with Anga, pretending to be upset that Anga does not appreciate him for being vigilant and worrying for Anga's safety. He hugs Anga, protecting the one he loves the most. The life of those born from royalty is full of treachery. Kong Guang may be loyal to Yanyu, but it does not mean that his loyalty will extend to the royal family. Luo Ange walks back and forth in his chambers while Kong Guang sits on the chair, seemingly relaxed. Yanyu turns to Kong Guang and asks why the crown prince would suddenly pay attention to Kong Guang. He fears that the crown prince must have discovered something. Kong Guang wraps one arm around Yanyu's thin waist, assuring him that there is nothing to worry about. If the crown prince found anything that he could prove, both of them would be in jail by now. There is no reason for the crown prince to suspect him. At this time, Luo Ange is merely acting as a figurehead. However, he is powerless against them, especially when the crown prince starts supporting them. Even if Ange finds anything, he can do nothing against them. Yanyu frantically raises his voice, his fear very apparent. Muki favors Ange, so there's no way that he would help them. Kong Guang tells Yanyu that he does not seem to understand men. Kong Guang extends his hand to the exit, bidding his guest to enter. When the door opens, Yanyu cannot believe his eyes. In front of him is the spitting image of his brother, dressed in women's clothes. Who is this woman? The woman greets them respectfully. Kong Guang put his hand on Yanyu's shoulder, pointing out that the woman bears a striking similarity to Ange. This sister is very similar to Ange. Kong Guang asks if Muki would fall for a woman with similar features to Ange. Yanyu answers that there is a possibility. Lifting the maiden's chin and squeezing her face harshly, he explains that men will always upgrade to the better option, and the old toys are treated as trash. A eunuch proposes a family party to Ange and Muki. As their king seldom, it is the best opportunity to throw a banquet with the lords and ladies in attendance. It will also bring them great honor if Muki would attend. Muki thinks about it for a few seconds, then turns to Ange and tells him that he is not a member of the Yunle royal family. He teasingly asks Ange whose identity he should assume to be able to attend. Ange tells him that he is welcome as an honored guest of Yunle. He's implying that he should attend as Ange's boyfriend or husband. Muki scoots closer to him, teasing Ange if he'll be treated as a mere guest. Ange looks away, asking whatever role Muki will take at the family gathering. Muki leans in telling Ange that he would like to attend as a family member. He asks Ange what he thinks. Ange shots back that they've been like family for a while now. Muki rubs his cheek on Ange's head, asking him how he could be so cute. He requests to have his seat beside Ange. Finally, Muki orders the eunuch to leave the room. Poor eunuch. He's been standing dumbly in front of them, suffering through the lovey-dovey scene. Soon, a banquet in honor of Anga was held. Yanyu steps up to the honored seats and invites Anga, who has been out of state for a long time, to drink with him. Anga tells him that he shall take the first swig. Muki grabs the cup from his hand. Worried that Anga's body has yet to recover, Muki drinks the alcohol for him. Anga protests that he is not drinking heavily and that he should not stop him from drinking. Muki explains that alcohol will make him lose himself. He teases Anga that he probably wants to use the liquid courage for something. Anga chastises Muki with just his name. An entertainer comes forward and introduces herself as Yao Ge. She announces to the spectators that she will dance the Flying Phoenix. Anga is stunned by the beauty of the dancer. Yanyu tells him that it is a surprise that he specifically picked out Anga. The beautiful dancer smiles at Anga. Anga drops the pea he's been drinking from, shattering it. Anga stands up abruptly as he stares transfixed on the dancer that bears his face. Why did Anga react like that to the dancer? Muki turns to the side as he watches Yanyu and Kong Guan observe them with rapt attention. Muki is amused by this foolish move. The woman steps forward and Anga confirms her name. He asked her where she hailed from and her age. Yao Ge shyly answers that she is from Fuzhou and that she was born on January 1. She is 18 years of age. Anga notes that her birthday is on the same date as his sister's. Is this girl Anga's long-lost sister? When he was young, Anga sneaked out with his sister. Trudging along, he asks his sister if sneaking out is a good idea. Their father ordered him to shoot 100 arrows per day and must not rest until he completes the task. His sister shush him, telling him that he can tell their father that it was his sister's idea to go out. With Anga being so obedient, their father would surely believe him. Anga stares at the girl as if bewitched. Had his sister survived through adulthood, this is how she would look like. Yao Ge felt awkward by how much Anga would stare. He tells her not to be afraid. Before he could finish what he wanted to say, his wrist was grabbed by Muki. Muki excuses himself and Anga as they have urgent matters to attend to. Anga looks at him, unable to catch on. The look on Muki's face clearly spells trouble for Anga. Heading out, Muki drags Anga with him. Anga observes that Muki has been doing just fine, but his mood suddenly changes. Yanyu turns to Kong Guan worried that they made the crown prince mad, and asks what they should do. Kong Guan did not expect Muki to be so sentimental, more like extremely jealous and possessive, but it should not be an issue. They still have a chance as long as Yao Ge can find another opportunity to be with them. Outside the banquet hall, Muki continues to drag Anga along. Anga asks him what made him so mad, and is worried that walking out of the banquet will fuel more rumors to spark. When Muki finally lets him go, he complains that Anga is acting too casually with the maid. Anga's big eyes stare at him until Muki can't take it anymore. When he tries to elicit a response from Anga, his beloved giggles. Anga accuses him of being jealous. Muki denies this but explains that he's never seen Anga take an interest in anyone before, and it made him mad. Anga touches Muki's face and confirms that Muki's birthday is on the 10th of September and that he was born in Yi country. Anga's proving that he is interested enough to know Muki's birthday. Muki confirms that Anga is correct. Anga explains that his interest in Yao Ge is due to her resemblance to his sister, and it makes him nostalgic. He reasons that even if he's a narcissist, there's no way that he would fall in love with someone who looks like him. Muki blushes. Is this the first time we see him blush? He tells Anga that he should still keep his distance from her as he's already spoken for. It is Anga's turn to blush as he asks who said that he's taken. Anga dumbly thinks that he has no bride. Muki teases him that Anga remembers his name well because he intends to marry Muki. In ancient China, a marriage match is also determined by the couple's date of birth and place of origin. He also tells him that his heart belongs to Anga, therefore there is no question that they are destined for each other. Anga points out that Muki is the crown prince of Yi country, and everyone knows when his birth date is. Muki cuts off Anga's prattling by kissing him. Muki promises that when they return to Yi country, he shall tell his father that he only belongs to Anga. Anga complains that Muki should not be so reckless as he is the crown prince. Muki promises that he shall force his parents to agree. A scenario forms in Anga's mind, and he feels like an evil concubine who led the prince astray. Muki asks him which direction his imagination took. Anga puffs out his cheeks, telling Muki that he got scared first. Muki kisses the top of Anga's head, promising to never let him down. On the next day, Anga sits in his reading room pondering what Muki meant the day before. Muki has been acting mysteriously. Getting his parents to accept his relationship with Anga is nearly impossible. Anga's musing is interrupted by a maid who enters his reading room. Anga recognizes her right away as Yaoga and asks what she is doing in his chambers. She tells him that the crown prince sent her to serve Anga. Anga asks if she meant Muki. Anga thinks that his beloved crown prince probably sent her to make Anga happy. Muki steps out of the shadows and apologizes to Anga for dragging him out of the banquet. He asks if Anga likes this present and if this is enough to make up for what he did. Anga cautiously asks if his words would be taken against him. He asks if Muki will get jealous if Anga answers that he likes the present. Muki tells Anga that he trusts him. In response, Anga tells him that they should return to the Yi capital. Muki did not expect this answer. Anga rushes towards him and gives him a hug. Anga tells him that he misses their home, spreading his arms wide to hug him. This gesture is touching for Muki. He kisses the top of Anga's head. Anga turns to the other person in the room. Yaoga watches them quietly. Anga separates himself from Muki and walks towards Yaoga. Anga hands a pouch filled with money to Yaoga. He tells her that he will instruct Yanyu to release her from her services. Muki watches the interaction, baffled. Anga turns to Muki, telling him that he only needed Muki by his side. In turn, he also wants to make Muki happy. Muki basks in his beautiful smile, telling him that it shall happen, as long as it is Anga's wish. Yaoga grits her teeth in anger. She draws attention to herself, telling Anga that she belongs to Anga as she is a gift. She begs not to be kicked out. Anga tells her that he is not firing her, but rather, he is setting her free. He tells her that instead of going back to her hometown, Yan, you can find a good family that she can marry into. Amidst her tears, Muki explains that Anga does not intend to be cruel to her and will find a good place for her. He then asks her what seems to be the matter. Yaoga has no choice. She cannot fail. She remembers when Kong Guan gave her the order. She was told that should she fail, there will be consequences. Something related to the schemes of the Za. Maybe her family was found doing illegal things. Yaoga begs Anga to keep her. She does not wish to marry anyone. She only wants to serve Anga. Anga does not understand why she's adamant about serving him. Most maids wish to finally get out of the palace and build their own family. He wonders why Yaoga is so afraid of leaving. Anga is baffled why Yaoga would act like this. He asks her if there is something she wants to tell him. Dread sinks Yaoga's stomach at the thought of being found out. She raises her head and vehemently denies Anga's suspicions. She tells him that she admires him so much that she desperately wants to stay with him. Anga is skeptical, but does not know what to do. Muki intervenes, advising him to keep Yaoga for now. Anga hesitates, but Yaoga cheers in delight and prostrates on the floor in gratitude. Muki tells Anga that he understands that Yaoga probably does not wish to tie herself to anyone at a young age. Someday, they will find a good match for her. Muki thinks that it is better to keep her close rather than be in the dark when she puts her schemes into action. Muki is a fan of keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Anga heeds Muki's advice, but he does not miss Muki's unusual action. Muki orders Yaoga to rise and that she will serve Anga alongside you. She cheerfully agrees. Yaoga smiles to herself, thinking that the crown prince probably finds her attractive and would soon fall on her lap as long as she gets a chance to be alone with him. She can finally put her master's plans into action. Muki and Anga arrive at the Yi Country Palace after a few days of travel. High-ranking eunuchs would greet them upon their return. One of them appears to be holding back tears. Was he too happy to see them return safe and sound? Muki asks the eunuch what made the eunuch teary, then proceeds to order him to prepare hot water for their bath. The eunuch responds that he's feeling teary-eyed due to the information he has to relay to Muki. When Muki asks what it is, the eunuch takes piles of missives out of nowhere and tells Muki that he needs to review these memorials as ordered by the emperor. If I were him, I'd be prostrating myself in front of Muki. Anga snickers at Muki's situation and tells him that he'll be the one to first take a bath so that Muki can start working. Muki grabs him by the shoulder, telling Anga that they are one unit now and they shall suffer together. He guilt-trips Anga into helping him with the missives. Dragging a protesting Anga, Muki orders the servants to bring them food to his study as it's going to be a long night for him and Anga. Anga struggles in his grasp, throwing a tantrum. Run. Anga, run. The maids started fangirling at the lovey-dovey sight while Yaoga looked on. Those maids are the first Fujoshis. She turns to one of the maids and asks why the crown prince refuses to have the servants attend to him or let Ange catch his breath after a long journey. The maid recognizes her as the girl who came from Yunle and tells her that the crown prince has always been independent and likes to keep Ange close to him. Yao Ge graciously smiles at her, happy that she's able to get much information. Ange and Mu Qi spend every day together. They work together, stroll the garden together, and even eat together. Yao Ge can't get a chance to be alone with Mu Qi as the two are inseparable. She may never get a chance if she does not take action. One day, she finally got her chance. Mu Qi stands in front of his bedroom door with Yu listening in rapt attention to his orders. Mu Qi orders Yu to prepare some light congee for Ange and serve it to him when he wakes. After making sure that Yu understood his orders, Mu Qi left the hall all by himself. Yao Ge does not waste this opportunity. Mu Qi sits alone in his study while going through the missives. He hears someone enter the study. He notices that the newcomer is wearing light purple robes. Without looking up, Mu Qi assumes that the newcomer is Ange. He teases him for being able to wake up so early, and that Mu Qi was not able to tire him out the night before. He grabs Ange by the waist, maneuvering him to sit on his lap. When he looks at his beloved's face, his features turn to shock at seeing that the person sitting on his lap is not Ange. It is none other than Yao Ge. Mu Qi angrily stands up, making Yao Ge fall harshly to the floor. He demands to know who set Yao Ge to seduce him. I guess her plans are not going in the direction she wants. Yao Ge slumps on the floor, an image of innocence. She directs her wide doe eyes at Mu Qi, begging for his forgiveness. She tells him that she came to serve Mu Qi, and that she does not understand why he's angry at her. Mu Qi can't contain his anger and asks Yao Ge if she thinks he's stupid. From the study's entrance, Ange makes an appearance asking Mu Qi what's happening. That is perfect timing. Yao Ge thinks that she must change her strategy. It's no use seducing Mu Qi as he's loyal to a fault, so she must find a way to come between them instead. She crawls towards Ange and kneels in front of him. She tells him that she does not know what she did wrong and begs for her life to be spared. Mu Qi angrily calls out her BS. Mu Qi worries that Ange might get an idea about what's really going on. When Ange finds out about Yao Ge's tricks, then it is only a matter of time before he finds out about what happened to Ting. Yao Ge insists that she came to serve Mu Qi when she sees that there are no other servants to assist him in the room. She implies that Mu Qi did something nefarious to her as she cries pitifully in front of Ange. Mu Qi can't believe the words she's spouting. Ange knows that Mu Qi would never do anything untoward to his servants. He also observes that Yao Ge willingly entered a room, dressed similarly to Ange, where she would be alone with the crown prince. I'm glad Ange is level-headed enough to objectively assess the situation. Ange looks at her sternly, telling her that Mu Qi does not randomly punish anyone. He tells her that she will not get punished as long as she does not do anything wrong. Ange is a better person than me. She tries to protest, but words escape her. Ange cuts off her excuses and tells her to change her clothes and not to be a disgrace to Yunle. Ouch. That stings. She deserves it, though. Clenching her teeth, she obeys and leaves the room. Mu Qi turns to Ange and tries to defend himself. He wanted Ange to know that the situation is not what it seems. Ange giggles and then teases him for expanding his fan club. Not only do the girls from Yi Country fancy him, but another girl from Yunle joins the club. Ange looks at Ange in bafflement and asks if Ange is mad at him. Ange tells him that he's not the jealous type. It will be a bloodbath if he fights every girl who wants to have a chance with Mu Qi. Ange's answer does not make Mu Qi happy. In fact, it made him feel insecure. For Mu Qi, loving someone can make you wallow in jealousy, which makes him fear losing the one he loves. Ange not being angry makes Mu Qi feel that he does not care. Mu Qi raises Ange's chin so that their eyes meet. Mu Qi tells Ange that he's good at handling Mu Qi. He must feel so secure knowing that Mu Qi is all his. Ange blushes as he turns away, denying Mu Qi's words. He tells Mu Qi that he's not keeping him captive. Mu Qi leans down to nuzzle his face on Ange's head. He tells Ange that he only has to say the word and Mu Qi is all his. Ange places his head on Mu Qi's shoulder. In his heart, he knows that he feels the same for Mu Qi. Suddenly, Ange's world is turned upside down as Mu Qi pushes him down on the desk, his eyes greedy. Ange sits alone in his bedroom. The tranquility of the place is interrupted by a soft voice telling him that snacks were made specially for him courtesy of the crown prince who wants Ange to enjoy the treats. Ange coldly tells her to set the tray down, and she immediately obeys. Ange lectures her for her previous mistake. He tells her that the study is off limits unless the crown prince calls for her. She must not disturb the crown prince as the study is where he works on important missives. He reminds her that she must have learned it on her first day in Yi country. She did, but she conveniently forgot. She tries to appeal to Ange's kindness and tells him that she only did it as she wanted to help Ange, who seemed uneasy. She denies breaking any rules. Ange points out that she was wearing Ange's clothes. She kneels on the floor, telling Ange that she only did it so that she does not disturb the crown prince. Yeah, right? She begs him not to get the wrong idea. Ange's face clearly shows his disbelief. When Ange pulls at the arm that she's been clutching, she tells Ange that she is willing to prove her innocence by taking her own life. She runs towards the door, which makes Ange stand up abruptly to run after her. Ange grabs her hand, asking her what she wants to do. If she tries to take her life one more time, Ange's reputation will be tarnished. She looks back at him, denying that she intends to bring him trouble. Ange tells her that it may not be her intention, but she did it anyway. Ange knows that she's just manipulating him, knowing that Ange will not let her take her own life before she can come up with an excuse. Ange tells her to go to the Office of Punishment and suffer her penalty. He warns her to never play tricks on Ange ever again. If she does it again, Ange will not be as lenient. Good job at dealing with her, Ange. I hope she stops with her plans. No minute she's been found out, she bows her head in obedience. Later that day, Ange went to the garden to unwind. He lets out a deep sigh as you pours him a cup of tea. You asks if the sigh was caused by Yao Ge. Ange admits that it is indeed due to her. Yao Ge may look a lot like his sister, but their morals are far too different. He remembers what he and Mu Qi talked about in the study after Yao Ge attempts to seduce Mu Qi. Mu Qi tells him that he's leaving the decision on what to do to her up to Ange. Ange tries to get out of it. As Mu Qi is the master of the palace, it should be up to him to dispose of servants. However, Mu Qi does not see it that way. He wants to give Ange a semblance of power. Since he can find Ange in this small area called a palace, then he should at least give Ange the power to decide on his servant's fate. It's good that Mu Qi is trying to balance the power between them. Ange returns to the present as he tells you that what happened with Yao Ge unsettled Mu Qi. It was the first time that he saw him uneasy. Mu Qi was worried that Ange would misunderstand the situation due to what Yao Ge would say to him. Yu scratches his head, telling Ange that the crown prince must be uneasy because he loves Ange so much. Ange looks at him earnestly. He believes that in a relationship, the power wielded between them should be balanced. Ange does not want Mu Qi to tiptoe around him. He wanted Mu Qi to know that he felt the same for him. Then tell him, looking at you, Ange seeks his understanding. Yu shares his 2 cents and tells Ange that he should copy what the crown prince has been doing. He must show him in action how he feels so that Mu Qi will understand him. That is good advice. This is why I love you. Ange ponders on Yu's advice. Before he can think of ways to express how he feels, Yu exclaims in delight, telling Ange that he has an idea. Conspiratorially, Yu whispers to Ange that he should take the lead in their bedroom sessions, just like what Mu Qi does for him. Ange finds this suggestion scandalous. Trust you to come up with the best ideas. Ange blushes as he asks if Yu's plan would work. Yu raises his fist in conviction like the cheerleader he is and assures Ange that it would definitely work. He gave it his seal of approval and told Ange that it always worked in the romance books he read. Wait up, not the best reference. You know that those are fiction, right? But go on. Sounding like the world's best relationship coach, Yu tells him that when faced with the one you love, you want him to be all yours. You want his inside and his outside. What? The crown prince will definitely understand. Again, Yu gave it his seal of approval. Ange tries to envision how taking the lead will go. He imagines laying Mu Qi down on the bed, assuring him that he'd be gentle. Wait up. So that's what they meant by taking the lead. He was suggesting that Ange should top. Why is this too funny for me? Ange finds the idea far too appealing. He slams his hands on the desk, excited to put their plan into action. I'm praying for Mu Qi's lovely behind. Later that day, Ange enthusiastically welcomes Mu Qi home. He helps him with his cloak and offers to serve him dinner. Mu Qi is pleased to be on the receiving end of Ange's pampering and asks him if he has something planned. Ange tells him that he's just rewarding him for working so hard and that he's talking nonsense. Mu Qi apologized for assuming and held Ange's hand. Ange takes his seat and tells Mu Qi that he deserves this reward. His work piled up when he accompanied Ange to Yunla, and Ange wanted to thank him. Picking up a piece of sausage, Ange puts the piece in Mu Qi's bowl, taking the lead in serving him. Mu Qi finds Ange's actions to be suspicious. He takes a bite of the food Ange served him. When Anga asks if he likes the food, Muki leans close to him, praising the food as it was Anga who served it to him. Anga chastises him for being too sweet. Anga thinks back to earlier that day. Before dinner, Ji Xiang gave Anga a forbidden drug he stole. Disbelieving, Ji Xiang asks Anga if he really wants to go through it. What the hell, Anga? Now, you plan to drug Muki. Why does this couple always take things a step too far? Anga smiles happily upon receiving the drug, telling Ji Xiang to relax. He tells him that he only wanted to surprise Muki. He has no intention of poisoning him. There are so many ways this plan could go wrong. Don't go around drumming people. Back to the present. Anga asks him how he's feeling, and if he wants to go to bed early. Anga recalls Ji Xiang telling him that the drug's effects are immediate. Muki should be feeling the effects now. Muki sways in his seat and he grabs his head to alleviate the dizziness. He admits to feeling dizzy. Finally, he slumps on his seat, unconscious. Mischievously, Anga raises his hands together in delight. He orders Ji Xiang to get Muki to bed. Looming over the sleeping Muki, Anga gives himself a pep talk. With their situation reversed, Anga needs to gather his resolve and take the lead. Anga pulls at the blanket covering Muki, as if reciting a line from a trashy romance novel. Anga mischievously repeats the lines Muki once said when Anga was under his mercy. He tells Muki that he's about to start. He does not say no, then his silence means yes. Before Anga could rejoice, Muki's baritone voice cuts through the silence of the room. Grabbing Anga by his waist, Muki finds out what Anga has been up to. Surprised, Anga finds himself underneath Muki. Anga screams upon realizing that Muki has been awake the whole time. Muki looms over him, thinking that Anga must have felt neglected because Muki has been busy with work. He tells Anga that it was indeed his fault. He leans down, showering Anga with kisses, while Anga protests, seeing that his nefarious plans were thwarted. Anga pushes Muki, allowing enough space between them so he can tell him what he wants. Muki kisses his hands, pointing out that Anga went as far as drugging him and putting him on the bed. He thinks that Anga wants him to take action. Anga denies this, telling Muki to lie down so that Anga could take the lead. Anga covers his mouth in embarrassment. Muki presses their foreheads together and calls Anga a silly thing. Muki thanks him for thinking about him and tells Anga that being on top is a tough job. Anga protests, telling Muki that he's not a fragile thing. He does not think being on top is a tough job at all and is confident that he can do it. I doubt it. In response, Muki silences him with his lips. Behind the curtains, Muki calls his name passionately, overjoyed that Anga cares for him. Meanwhile, the Empress calls for Yao Ge. Yao Ge bows before her, and the Empress orders her to raise her head so she can have a good look at her. She is astounded by how much Yao Ge resembles Anga. She heard of the rumors about a maid that Anga and Muki fought over. Now that she has a good look at the maid, she now understands why. She starts to interrogate the maid. She learns that Muki brought the maid from Yunlin and asks her if she knows Luo Ange. She asks the maid why Muki brought her specifically to Yi country. Yao Ge thinks of a way to take advantage of the Empress's confusion. As her plans to seduce the prince are not working and Ange is now wary of her, she needs to change her plans again so she can stay. She lies to the Empress, telling her that she does not know Luo Ange and that she'd never seen him before. She explained that the prince was happy with her service, which is why he brought her with him to Yi country. She turns on the waterworks and slumps on the ground, begging the Empress. She tells her that her resemblance to Ange caused a lot of gossip to run wild, and it angered Ange. She pretends to only want to take care of the crown prince. The Empress asks her if she really cares for Muki even if she is not given a title. Tearfully and with conviction, she tells her yes, and the Oscar goes to Yao Ge. This girl is far too good at acting. The next day, Ange sits in the garden to think about where he went wrong and how the plan went in a different direction. He berates himself for being foolish for listening to Yu's suggestion. Sadly, Yu's seal of approval does not guarantee results. Also, what kind of romance books has you been reading? Ange feels like a lug under Muki's thumb. His quiet musings are interrupted by a soft voice. In front of him, Yao Ge is dressed splendidly with a unique following her. Ange reminds her that he sent her to the Department of Affairs to receive punishment, yet she disobeys again, dressed like a concubine. She bows graciously at Ange, telling him that she has the Empress to thank. Stunned, Ange does not understand how the Empress is involved. The eunuch clears up the confusion by explaining that the Empress gave Yao Ge the honor of being Mu Qi's concubine. I can't believe she did this. After Ange and Mu Qi show her mercy, she goes around and becomes a concubine. Ange shivers in anger, unable to form words. The audacity is enough to leave anyone speechless. A baritone voice cuts the silence, asking if the Queen Mother has ever discussed the matter of concubines with him.